June of last year, I was at a venture conference for MedTech, and there was a panel discussion on Chinese venture investing in the U.S. Very, very interesting panel. I talked to the moderator and a couple of panelists after that session, and they all said lots of stories about Chinese venture investing in the U.S. No one has put together any data. So there was my perfect research opportunity to do something that no one has ever done, but obviously very important. When venture investments come in, it's almost, it's usually in a syndicate, and so a company announces we raised $12 million in Series B from this list of investors, and we have no way of knowing how much each investor has put in. So when a Chinese investor joins others, we don't know the amount of money. So it's simply impossible to track how much money is coming in, but we can track the number of investments. From a startup perspective, I would argue the number of investors actually might be more important because it's increasing the potential pool. As a startup, I'm more happy to see 10 Chinese investors come in with 10 million each than Alibaba coming in with one investment of 100 million, because 10 investments then get spread out, obviously, much more. If there's multiple Chinese investors that get around, then those are counted as separate investments, even though it's the same company. The numbers here clearly are an underestimate because there's no place you can go to get data like the SEC or the state of Delaware. It just has to be done through detective work. I found 6 angel investments from China in the last 4 years. Obviously, that's a gross underestimate. But if companies do not report their investments, there's no way for the rest of us to know what's actually going on. There's the largest in the recent past. Most of them are happening here. One could argue that maybe the top half really should be called private equity instead of venture capital, but we include that. There's the 10 largest. We're fortunate to have 3 out of the 10 with us today. There is the numbers for the last 4 years, broken down into early stage and expansion. 59% a year is the growth rate. So obviously the picture indicates that. About 2/3 of the companies are here in the Silicon Valley. In the big picture, the amount of money coming from China is relatively small. For me, that's a, combined with the top left, a glass half full perspective. Growth potential is there. Just the tip of the iceberg so far. 36 investments to date of this year. So if that process continues, if that case continues, we'll get to about 240 in 2016. So very likely to again exceed last year. Investors are divided into 4 groups. Traditional venture capital is one. Corporate fund is then a venture arm that just invests in anything, not necessarily its own sector. Strategic investor invests, a corporate fund investing in its own sector. And then strategic partner, where the investor not only invests in the U.S. startup, but also immediately forms a business line. And David mentioned that in his remarks earlier today. That's very, very important in the case of China. So there's the sectors that I divided the investees into. There's the total numbers for the last 4 years. So obviously traditional VC is the largest. 2012, no corporate funds. And so the biggest thing to note running quickly through the years is that traditional venture capital has become a smaller part of the total, and more corporations than coming in with investments. A given Chinese corporation does not have to be one type only. The best example would be Tencent. Sometimes Tencent is a strategic partner, other times they're a strategic investor, other times they're just a standard corporate firm. There's the breakdown in terms of sectors. No big surprise that mobile is the largest. And then year by year, the most notable thing as I run through the years quickly is life sciences has become more important over the past 4 years. So what does the future hold? These are things that we'll be hearing about for the rest of today. Will venture investments increase? Almost certainly. What types of investments in terms of categories remain to be seen, and then which sectors will the money then flow to. So any feedback, suggestions would be appreciated. The action report will be out in April at 2010 and 2011, and then the report will go out. Thank you very much for your attention.